Okay, welcome everyone to the, I don't know if I want to say the date out loud. Let's just say the September 2024 Modern Management Meetup. Welcome everyone. I think we've got a few new faces on board today. So just a few quick introductions on our side. My name's Mark O'Shea, and you can find me on probably through Twitter. I'll call it Twitter versus the other thing we just said. At Intune. And we've got, I guess, Steve, if you want to do a quick intro.
I'm Steve.
That's Steve.
You might find me on the interwebs, Intune.training, or via the service formerly known as Twitter, as on-prem cloud.
And I don't know, do we have an Uresh yet? No. He's missing in action. We'll assume he's okay. And we have one more person over in the Netherlands.
Hi. Good morning, everyone. Jeroen doing something with the Modern Workplace MVP as well in Intune. So and live from the Netherlands. That's it, I think.
Okay. So let's jump on in. So we'll just sort of do some introductions for anyone who's new in a moment. A couple of upcoming events we'll talk about, and then we'll get into, I guess, the meat of today's session, which is the WinGet toolkit for Intune, which Mitch is going to be going through with us. So make sure you've got lots of good questions for him, because he's totally prepared for them. Okay, and then we'll sort of just wrap up with general discussion topics, and talk about maybe some of the options for the coming months in terms of different topics. So up next then, just the quick one is for anyone who is attending for the first time, or maybe hasn't attended for quite a while but was drawn out of the woodwork for this one. If you just either want to unmute to introduce yourself, or alternatively, just drop a message into chat if you're more comfortable doing that. We don't really care one way or another, but just a bit of background, what your focus is, where in the world you are, because we know we do get people spread across different regions, different time zones, etc. So if anyone just wants to do a quick intro, just either drop it into chat, or please feel free to unmute.
Hi, my name is Vijay. This is my first session, and I'm very exciting to attend with this session. I'm working for Brennan IT as a senior desktop support engineer.
Okay, so that's Brennan. So you're somewhere in Australia?
Yeah, I'm living in Sydney. Yes.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
So welcome.
Don't know whether I need to unmute.
No, you can just talk.
So I'm Rob. I'm working for a firm that's got 550 users, fairly small, financial services, and I look after quite a lot of Microsoft stuff. Spending most of the time at the minute with, to be fair, Intune, and also all the Enter and conditional accessy bits. So yes, and if anyone's remembered Ken, I'm over from our London office for a little bit, so I thought I'd pop in and see you in person. Yes.
Ken and I used to work together at Crosspoint back in the day. So
there we go. So
small world.
It's his fault that I'm here.
That's awesome. Well, look, since I'm going to be talking, I suppose I better introduce myself. So my name's Mitch. This is probably, I think it's my third session now, actually. I got introduced to this by Ben Reader. I actually didn't even know this was a thing until I was told about it, so I would have been here a lot sooner. I work for a managed services provider in Sydney, and my current focus, I do a lot of projects at the company. I'm one of the solutions team guys, but most of my focus is probably on modern workplace, and within that, I leverage that as an opportunity to do a lot of automation and DevOps and try and really extend Intune to do things it can't quite do out of the box, such as the WinGet stuff we're going to talk about later on today.
Okay, and thank you Wang and Tony for dropping in some info. So looks like we've got a very Australia-centric audience today, which kind of makes sense, seeing that that was originally the target market, but because for a lot of for the other side of the world, or at least some parts, it's early or it's morning, so we tend to get a bit of variety, but today doesn't seem to be that case. Okay, so let's keep going then, just because we want to sort of keep things moving quickly so that we can get into the main topic. So just a few upcoming events. So the first one, the Microsoft AI Tour it's been an ongoing thing for close to a year now, but they've announced a bunch of new dates, and it's coming back to Sydney again. Now, I've got the comment in there about that there might be differences based on what location you go to. That was really aimed at, mostly if we had one of our regular Auckland attendees here who might get excited when they see that there's an Auckland version of the event this year, but it's a bit of a scaled down version compared to the Sydney one. But if anyone has looked at these dates, and a lot of them you can't actually register for them yet, they sort of just wait until it's a bit closer and then open it up. But if anyone wants to take a look at those dates, and if there are any cities that you're looking at going, it looks like it works for you, just drop a comment into chat, because I'll be at quite a few of them. So there might be a chance we can meet up somewhere, either locally or maybe on the other side of the world. And that's a free event. And as soon as you find out that it's that space is, or that it's open, that you can register, do it immediately. It's regards to the location. Basically, they just get the capacity immediately because it's free. Now, speaking of things that aren't free, I included the nice teaser before going to the thing where people go, well, how much is this one going to cost me? Well, I think this one will cost you, I think the number was like $2,225 US.
That's correct, sir. That is correct.
Yeah, because I remembered it because I thought, what a weird number. Not 2,200 or 2,300. I'm surprised it didn't have a cent number on there as well. Like it's almost like it's been rounded from a different currency, and they're like, I'll just round it to the nearest $5. But this is going to be quite different to every other Ignite that has ever happened. So not just if it was an Apple event, how would they position it? The most exciting set of announcements you'll ever know. No. So the reason why it's different is that they're actually combining what used to be Inspire with Ignite, and a ticket to one gets you a ticket to the other. So for people in your world of MSP, for example, where you might have people who have to straddle the understanding Microsoft programs and maybe even some licensing, as well as the technology, you can basically bounce back and forth between sessions. Whereas before, these were completely separate events, like months apart from each other.
One was a junket and one wasn't.
One was in Vegas. Is that the one that you're suggesting is a junket? Oh, it was a junket.
One was positioned to let's say owners and management of partners, and the other one was targeted to the engineers.
Yeah, my favourite one is there's an independent schools association for New South Wales schools, and every year it's in the Gold Coast. That's their junket. I love it.
The Gold Coast Convention Centre is good,
and it is. The value of the Gold Coast is there's no corporate head office nearby.
That's true.
Take people there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so again, if anyone is planning on attending Ignite, and especially if you're going to be attending and you're attending as a first-time attendee, to be blunt, it can be quite overwhelming, and there are a few of us who are more than happy to give you some advice, or even help to steer you in the right direction if there are certain people or teams that you want to meet up with over there.
Definitely reach out to me if you want to talk to people. I've got needed to introduce people.
Okay. So we need to find out who we'll have to send. So Dom's not here, but we'll have to nominate Dom to go. Okay. So just with those, just a couple of things that are on the horizon. One of them is probably going to be more achievable than the other for most people, but I just thought it would be worth mentioning both. Now, with that basically is just all of the admin kind of stuff. So I'll hand over to Mitch now.
We got there a lot quicker than I thought.
Oh, is your machine still restarting?
No. It's 100% good to go. Let me get a screen share up.
Yeah.
So,
That up. Yes.
looks good. No worries at all. Okay, so thank you, everybody. So last time when we were here, there was a bit of a conversation around WinGet and various different solutions around. And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of solutions out there for WinGet at the moment on the internet. With this kind of stuff, I generally like to write my own solutions just because it gives me more of an understanding about how the things work under the hood, and it also allows me to do things that I might specifically want. So I'm very big on getting correct exit codes out of things, so I can get a WinGet exit code into Intune and get a bit more information and stuff like that. So at my company, we have our own internal module that we use in Intune, and this is an extrapolation from that. And it's basically how we do WinGet operations in Intune. This isn't something that's going to be for everybody. So WinGet is not like a magic pill where it's going to take away legitimate reasons why you would consider something like Patch My PC or other solutions which are going to manage your applications. But for a smaller company where maybe you're wanting to deploy applications, and when you build machines, know that you're getting the latest installer for those applications at all times, it could be a quick and easy solution which doesn't really cost you anything financially. And, I do know at small businesses, it's often hard to get budget for anything, and you're always scrambling to find what you can do within the community. So it's a simple script, and it is on GitHub. I will share the link in Teams before this meeting is out. And it's basically a single script that you can deploy onto a machine. I won't go into the nuts and bolts of the script just yet. I'll go through a bit of a demonstration, but the way I've intended this to work, and which is probably a little bit different to a lot of other wrappers out there as well, is it's intended that you would deploy this to the machine, and you can deploy it anywhere you want. You might have a folder that you use to cache scripts on the machine. And the idea behind it is if something changes within WinGet and the toolkit needs an update, you can update that one script rather than having scripts that you actually package into an Intune Win file that you constantly need to update or manage. So by extracting that out and just using empty Intune Win files to basically bootstrap this switch, it allows you to just manage that a lot better, because you could end up having 30, 40, 50 or more applications. And if something was to go wrong, that would be a lot of admin to update that. So I've got a little VM, which is awake. So I'll start off first off, and I'm just going to run it. I've got a command prompt window here, and I'm just running it via PowerShell using the file parameter. And I'm going to give it an ID. And so it will accept any WinGet ID that you give it. You can look up the WinGet IDs online, or you can use WinGet from the command line yourself. And I'm going to run this to see what happens when I do it with no mode of operation, just the ID, which is going to basically detect whether Google Chrome is installed or not. I will say as well, my work laptop is very laden with security stuff that bogs it down, so please be patient.
This is where we can start playing a game, trying to guess which process is killing the CPU laptop.
I don't know if you can hear the fan going here, but I sure can. So this is a script, and we've run it now. So I don't have Google Chrome installed on this machine, and that's indicated by the red line, which said WinGet operation failed with exit code, blah, blah, blah. So I actually translate the exit code from an assigned integer into a H result, so you can actually get that hex code. I then also get the actual code definition out of WinGet source code so that you can see that it means no applications found. And you can see here that we're exiting with the actual exit code that WinGet failed with. And if I was to do echo level %, we can see we've got that exit code here. So that's really important to me because I can get that exit code in the information on the application on Intune, and that allows me to get a bit more information around what actually went wrong with that application. What it's also doing here is it's basically serving as a logging platform as well. So if we were to open up this log file, so it's just using transcription as part of PowerShell, nothing too flash. But you can see all the information that we had in the console is captured. So you've got a complete log on the machine that you can use to see what's gone wrong. And it's also writing this red line to the standard error stream from the console. So it's not writing it to the success stream. That means that when you're using this in detection scripts, where in the Intune management extension logs, it'll actually separate out success text from error text. You can get the error just on its own isolation, which is really nice. The other thing that this is doing for you as well is it's also managing the prerequisite stuff as well on a brand new machine. For anyone who's used WinGet before, you've probably been in a situation where you get the latest 23H2 ISO for Windows 11. You think it's going to have an up-to-date WinGet. You very quickly find out it's got a WinGet from 2 years ago and it doesn't work properly. This will actually update the WinGet version to the latest version in a pre-provisioned capacity if it finds that it is out of date. And it also manages things like the MSVC prerequisite as well. It's basically designed that you can just use this and not have to think about how you need to set WinGet up to make it work. It just works. Now that we've done that and we see that we don't have an app, let's actually install it and just go through the motions. So I'll leave that there and I'll just do dash install. We'll test how fast my 5G goes. So all of this text that it's processing right now, this is actually parsed WinGet output from the console application. There's quite an large parser in there to munge the log files out, the log lines out nicely and cleanly. It's also got code in there as well that will convert WinGet output into PS custom objects and stuff as well. So it provides you data back. It should be worth noting as well, we do all this stuff purely because for WinGet PowerShell module, which does exist and is getting there day by day, doesn't really work properly in the context of Intune. They deliberately have terminating errors that they throw when it detects that it's running a system because they're concerned about audiences using it in the system context to install user applications, and they're trying to save the audience from themselves. It is regrettable because this script is about 2,000 lines of code to make this work nicely. It could be 200 lines with a module to power it underneath.
While that's going through, do you want to just make your font a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
Perfect.
Yeah, too easy. So that's now installed. And let's just actually verify that. Got the typos. Cool. So we now have Google Chrome. That means that if I run the first line again, we should get a successful detection. Let's just confirm that. Cool. So we've successfully detected Google Chrome. It'll also tell you as well if the installed version is out of date compared to what WinGet has. So it gives you a lot of information there as well. You can also then, when you're detecting, you can mandate the version as well. So if I give it some arbitrary version, this should throw because the version that's installed is less than the version I've specified as a minimum. So you can use that as part of the detection scripts if you're trying to manage an upgrade process where you want it to forcibly not detect any version, but you want it to detect a minimum baseline version. So we can see there, but it's detected Chrome at 128.0, but 129.0 or higher is needed. So you can use that as well. Anytime that the script throws its own error, it will exit on 1603, which is an MSI exec standard exit code. And by default, Intune will just pick that up unless you've changed the exit codes in the table that it gives you by default. We can then also use this to now uninstall the application. And then I'll show you something else after this is removed.
Okay, so just a general question here for you.
Sure.
And based on, what you're doing as an MSP,
Mhm.
what are you finding that there are any particular like tools you'd expect or apps you'd expect to find in WinGet that aren't there yet? Yes.
It's not a magic pill for everything. There are certainly a lot of applications that aren't there. Usually it's the ones that are behind some kind of paywall. So let's say FortiGate, for instance, used to offer their VPN client for public download. The one in WinGet is now very, very old, and it's just not worth deploying. So we unfortunately do download that and we statically package that version up. It is worth noting as well as a company, and I haven't looked into it in full detail, but I believe it's a little bit complex. You can set up your own WinGet repositories. And if you wanted to have a private repository for your business, you could certainly do that. I don't know the technical details around that, but that would be a solution you could do in your business as well. There's also been issues in the past where if the WinGet packages repository, they're very hard and fast on not accepting things that their CI/CD pipeline can't build. So for the longest time, they were shipping an insecure Del command update, which actually had known CVEs against it because that version built or installed without a Del check. They added a hardware check, it wouldn't build, and somebody came up with some very magic MSI exec parameters to pass to it to make it deliver through, and that's how it ended up getting updated. So definitely not a magic pill. Definitely there are going to be things missing. Sometimes they're out of date. Sometimes things just aren't there. So for instance, I was using TeamViewer, but they only ever had the XE version of TeamViewer and I wanted the MSI. I actually sent my own PR with the MSI version up there, and now there's an MSI version. So you can submit your own things as well. They go through a rigorous testing process. So if there's something that you think is going to benefit not just you, but the world, you can PR that and send it off. We've now used this to uninstall. So what we've demonstrated here is not only is it an install and an uninstall process, but it's also a detection process. It's really a one-stop script to manage the entire lifetime of an application within Intune. What I wanted to show now is, and for anyone who's used WinGet before, you've probably come across situations where applications are downloaded via a permalink. Therefore, the vendor might update the version of their software and the manifest in WinGet doesn't quite know that there's a new version. Therefore, it fails the SHA-256 hash fail and you can't install the application. I don't necessarily recommend it, but there is a mode in here that will bypass the hash failure. So if I force it to do this, so there's a parameter called ignore hash failure. This debug hash failure is a way of just me testing it. Evidently there's a bug. So what it's meant to do is it actually parses the manifest from WinGet itself and downloads the file for you and will sideload it into the machine. So it basically does what WinGet does, but in PowerShell. The demo gods weren't kind to me today. I tested this yesterday without a problem. Today, we're not so lucky. So I'll work on what that dictionary error is. The way you would use this in the context of Intune, I did try to set up a demonstration tenancy for today. I found out that it was a little harder to get a demo or a developer account with Microsoft than it was in 2022 when I last tried. So I wasn't able to do that. But the way you would deploy this is quite simple. Basically, you just upload your Intune win file, which has the script in it, and you can put it anywhere on the machine. In this example text where I've got lines that you can copy and paste in, such as the name, description, the author, the version, I'm really just putting it into the System32 directory. You can stick it anywhere on the machine that you like. The benefit of having it in the Intune of the System32 directory, as wrong as that is, it simplifies your detection script, and your detection script then could instantly just be something along the lines of invoke winget operation.ps1. You can then save that out as a new script, and that would be your detection script as well. So the idea, again, it's a framework that you can use for this application management without having to embed the actual toolkit itself in with the application, though you certainly can. It's designed to be installed on the machine. You can then use it for your install and uninstall operations, as well as your detection operations as well. It does provide logging. And it also has pretty cool ASCII art at the start, so you can't go wrong with that, right?
Exactly.
Exactly. Other than that, it's pretty short and sweet in terms of what it can do. I won't delve too deep into the code because there's probably an element of the audience who may not want to see that. But it is fairly well documented. So it's got a PS script info header. So I did have, I was inspired to get it into the PS gallery. I haven't quite got it there yet, but it has full comment-based help for all of the parameters. So a lot of these parameters will directly map to parameters that you can use against winget.exe. So if you've used winget from the command line, a lot of these should be familiar. Even the one with a hyphen in the middle to make it work on the winget command line, which is very annoying in PowerShell. A few examples. It has a full change log of everything that I got wrong in the preceding versions up until 1.27. So feel free to have a read for all of that. But other than that, it's a fairly well-structured script. It stops on every single error it finds. It's using strict mode. Everything's broken down very cleanly into functions. It's a script that you can take readily, and even if it's not quite fit for purpose or you need to make it do something else, you should find that you're able to make it do what you want it to do without much fuss. In addition to that, I have put it on GitHub, and I will share the link in a sec. I have licensed it under the BSD3 clause license, which is a very permissive license, not dissimilar to the MIT license. So you should be able to take this and use it within your business and do whatever you want, even if it's proprietary and you don't want to give it back. Is there anyone got any questions? Is anyone using WinGet at the moment? Is anyone doing anything or any feedback?
So I think there was a question asked about
The WinGet auto update.
Wintune.app.
Intune,
Wintuner.app. Yeah,
I haven't used that myself, no.
where what it'll allow you to do is get the app from WinGet and publish it straight into Intune.
Right, okay.
so almost like the app catalog.
I don't know what you're talking about here, Mark.
Yeah, okay.
Sounds very familiar, but I don't know what you're talking about.
No, I'm sure there's lots of different solutions out there. And I mean, WinTuner sounds interesting. I've not looked at it myself personally. This was built for, this actually started off as a small script. I think my first version as a minimal test was like 10 lines. And it's just grown over time because I wanted to do more things. And it's also a little bit larger because it has come out of our module at work, which means I've basically copy and pasted a lot of the logging code into this to make it work in a standalone capacity. But it's a ready-to-go solution, and it might suit your needs. If it doesn't, there's certainly other things out there. I do work with the PS App Deploy Toolkit team, and we're working on version 4. When version 4 ships, which is going to be a module-based version of that framework, I planned to rework this as a module that depends on PS App Deploy Toolkit. That means it would be in the gallery alongside PS App Deploy Toolkit, and that might make it a little bit more accessible and consumable to people as well, rather than a script that you've got to put onto a machine somehow.
So, Mitch, are you trying to say that the future of this tool is probably going to be a module-like PSAD kind of a thing?
Potentially, yeah. I'm going to perfectly admit I didn't know I was doing this until last week. Mark prompted me, and I'm like, oh, okay, I better get something together. So I basically took this from our company's module, which I can't release, and I've just put it up in a releasable form, which is basically a standalone script. This is how it started off its lifetime before we developed a module internally at my company. So I just kind of took it back to its roots. It is still fully featured. It's not you're not disadvantaged in any major way by using it as a script. Some people might find it easier because by the time you write some kind of boilerplate code to install a module from the gallery and do bits and pieces, you might find a script is more consumable. And it's very easy to just run it and test it from the command line as well.
Gotcha.
But yeah, I would like it to be a module. I think modules are, I think people are, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, people probably weren't as, G'd up enough to basically download modules. I think it was a bit harder to consume them. People are very readily able to use modules now. You've got the PS Gallery and you've got so many resources to download modules and stuff. So I would like to see it a module, and because a lot of work's gone into PS8ET to get that into a module state, because it just needed a lot of work to do so. it'd be remiss not to build this on top of that logging framework to give you a standardized platform that you can use to log this and execute it as well.
Thank you.
No worries.
So
With the parameters, does that accept just like any WinGet parameters, or do you have like a fixed set that's allowed?
It is fixed. So the parameters that I've got up here, so we've got the default mode is list. So that translates to the keyword list, install or uninstall, depending on what you're doing. And then the parameters down here are ones that we've needed, I suppose, at my work. So we've got ID, we've got version, we've got a scope. You can specify the source, installer type. This is handy for installers where there might be an XE and there's an MSI version. Architecture to force an architecture, and overriding or giving custom arguments to be installed. So there's probably a few more arguments that it has that aren't here, but these are the ones that we've needed. There's probably more I could add, but we've got this at probably about 20 different customers at our business at the moment, and we've never needed anything more than it's got. So while you could add more, like I'm always trying to reduce my technical debt as well. So if I can maintain less code, then that's better for me.
Yeah, and I mean, if you can pass custom args, then that's a good
backup.
Yeah,
no, you can pass custom arguments, and we do that for certain things as well. At one point in time, we've got customers that do unfortunately have Office applications that do ship non-VSTO or non-online plugins and stuff like that you need to deploy as a Win32 app. Therefore, I've needed Office as a Win32 app to ensure a dependency order. You can use this to deploy Office, and then you can pass it a custom XML file to do your own deployment, but you're always using the latest ODT installer that WinGet offers. You can do a lot of things like that as well. So, yeah, that's a tested scenario and it works well.
Nice.
Yeah.
So do you just want to talk about the, I guess, you didn't get the Intune tenant set up, but just talk about some of the things involved as to what you'd be doing in Intune?
Yeah, no problem at all. Yeah, of course. So in the repository, I've got a file called info.txt, and I often have this alongside any applications sources that I have on the machine. Literally just, you've got the name, you've got a description, you've got an author, you've got a version, the minimum you need to enter on the front page, and then an install and uninstall line, and then what to do with like the device restart behavior. So you can name it anything you like. I've got a little bit of a description here, which may or may not suit. Reality is, if it's a non-optional app, like it's an app that you're requiring, no one's going to see the description anyway. And in this example install command, I'm really just copying it to the System32 directory just to make it easier to run a detection, because the System32 directory is in a search path for scripts on the machine when you just have a script that runs a detection. And again, I did an example over here where this, if it was saved, would just be a simple detection script. Of course, you can copy or install it, anywhere you want on the machine. There's no problem there at all. It isn't signed at the moment, so it would need to bypass the execution policy. But if I did do an official module, I would look in an ADO kind of pipeline or something like that to make it a signed module and make it even easier for people to consume. So basically, the way you would then deploy it is, you would deploy it like I've demonstrated here, and that becomes an application which serves as a dependency for any WinGet app that you have. Then basically, to install a WinGet application, you would just be doing something simple like Intune Management Extension is a 32-bit application, so we use sysnative to get the 64-bit PowerShell. So that would be your install line, and then the uninstall line would be the same with a different switch for the uninstall mode. Sorry, with the ID. So the idea here is, as you can see, we're not referencing a script which is in the package, where the package can just be an empty file. You can just have a text file named empty. You can package that up and off you go. Just something to get an application into Intune. And then because it's using a script which is already on the machine that you've cached and you're using as a dependency, it means this framework can be updated at any time and you're not having to update or touch 30, 40, 50 different applications. You're just updating that one dependency so that your administration burden is eased if a new version comes out or if WinGet changes something in some way where maybe the syntax needs adjusting to adapt to that. But yeah, it makes it very easy to consume. And again, you get that full logging on the machine, and it will also change the logging path depending on whether it's a system log or a user log. By default, it goes into C Windows logs for the system, and then for the user logs, it goes into the local app data folder, so it doesn't roam across the network or anything like that. But yeah, I'll get that link into GitHub as well. So yeah, it is released, it is available. Feel free to check it out. And yeah, any comments, good comments as well. If it's crap, let me know. I like, I'm pretty on the level, so.
So I was about to ask if you've gotten any feedback yet, but it sounds like you only pushed it in 2 days ago. So I don't think that would be a great question.
No, there's no feedback now. There's literally one commit, and that's the initial public release. As I said, it has kind of been a little bit, behind closed doors and stuff like that. But the amount of after hours time I put into this stuff, I'm looking to release a lot more stuff online and get myself out there a little bit more. I've got a lot of solutions that I've built over time to do various bits and pieces within Intune. Some of them are solutions no one should have to use, like managed printer solutions to make deployments easier. Some of them are, there's heaps of other things I've built. So I'm looking to get more things out there and yeah, kind of get a name for myself.
So what are some of the things that, I guess, being selfish, what are the things that you need to prioritize in terms of additional capabilities or plans? Is there anything you've got in mind?
Well, so a lot of the stuff that I wanted to do, like because I'm working on PS8ET and it's not yet ready for a version 4 release, I can't really do anything until that's finalized. So when that is finalized, I'll be able to start writing a module that is based on that. The reason I want to base it on that is I don't want to maintain solutions that have different logging standards and stuff like that. I'm very happy with the logging capabilities that PS8ET has, and because I've spent so much time working on that, it'd be remiss not to use it. So to get this into a module against that would be what I would like to do, and that would allow a lot easier consumption. It could also then be in the PS gallery and people could use it a lot more readily. But the reality is WinGet, they might update their module in 2 days' time and take away any and all need for something like this. This isn't made because I wanted to. I made it out of necessity because there was just no really good module out there. Someone did a module based on Crescendo, which is like a framework to wrap executables in PowerShell. I found that didn't work super well and it looked a little bit abandonware, which is why I kind of wrote my own thing. So yeah, get it into the module, get it in the PS gallery. That would be my next step, and find out what that dictionary error was that didn't occur yesterday.
Okay, so any questions from anyone? Steve, any questions?
Okay. So obviously we have the ability to publish apps via Intune from the store, which is using the WinGet. Yeah. And then there's various other, we'll call them third-party offerings.
Sure.
That allow the publishing of third-party updates.
Mm-hmm.
Where would you see the value of this over something like that?
I think it's got a segment for businesses where potentially you don't have the budget to get that third-party product in because they do cost X amount of dollars. And, I've been there in 30, 40 seat businesses, and sometimes it's very hard to get anything across the line. The other thing with the Win32 apps in Intune, but you can just add, not everything is there at the moment. There's a lot of apps that just simply aren't there. Mm-hmm. And this kind of fulfills that gap at the moment. It isn't, as I was saying earlier, it's not a bulletproof solution in the sense that it's not going to do what the Patch My PCs of the world do, where they manage mid-flight updates. I do believe someone earlier in the chat put a link to invoke WinGet auto update. I think that's the name of the project. I've actually not played with that, but I think that could complement this quite well, where this could assist with the deployment of applications to ensure you've got the latest application when you build your device via autopilot. And then maybe something like invoke WinGet auto update manages it thereafter. But yeah, if you've got the budget to go with something that's third party, which, you know, is potentially going to help with this and give you better reporting and stuff like that, it's probably within your best interest to do so. I don't think I've ever heard anyone dislike Patch My PC or anything like that. So it's certainly worth consideration, but you know, you might find yourself, you're just getting into Intune, it's exploratory, you're kind of moonlight doing it because you don't have any budget, but you're trying to reduce the hours that you're spending on building devices by hand because you don't have SCCM or anything like that. You might find that this assists in just making things a little bit nicer while you're potentially doing a proof of concept, or you're trying to do that internal sell to a business where, and you might consider something paid for thereafter.
Yeah. Now, this is probably just more of a general question. Maybe you can answer it. Maybe some other people can talk about their experiences as well. How do you find, like in terms of the performance of doing installs from the different repos? Do you find that there's basically your network is normally?
Well, so with WinGet, it's actually downloading the package straight from the author's website, right? Yeah. So it's really subject to how good their CDN is. I don't really notice much of a performance impact. It'd have to be like a really kind of a small no-namey kind of product where it's just got one mirror overseas somewhere and you're struggling for life. But generally, I find I really have bandwidth issues these days, no matter where I'm getting things from. And I haven't noticed any performance degradation between using this versus downloading the package on the fly via WinGet. In some regards, depending on the size of the payload as well, it could even be faster because Intune will, when you download your Intune WIN file, it's going to download it, then it's going to do a SHA-256 hash on it. And that could be a 2 gig payload for something like Adobe Acrobat. Yeah. That takes time. Then it's got to extract it. Then it's probably a self-extracting exe, which extracts again. Maybe WinGet's faster because it's just downloading the actual raw installer and it's doing its own hashing as well.
But I guess even in a lot of cases, like sometimes it's the install time that's the problem, not the download time anyway.
Yeah, exactly. More often than not, yeah.
Yeah, then the Intune, traditional Intune WIN is going to add more to that.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. Absolutely. So we, as I said, we use basically 90% of this code in our own module at work, and we've got it across 20 different customers at the moment. And it is installing the latest version of applications, and it works consistently very well. So we've been very happy with it, and it's certainly reduced our tenant maintenance burden as well. So, you know, we focus now on really good things within Intune, such as maybe uplifting security baselines or just making sure the customer's posture is good, rather than chasing your tail, updating Google Chrome every second day, because that's how they operate. Yeah. I still can't get customers off Chrome. It agonizes me, but I try. I fight the good fight.
So do you use this module for patching apps that are already deployed or just new installs?
No, it's just for new deployments on the machine. So we've got a patching solution that we use internally. I won't name names because it pains me to name the name of the name. We'll do that in the unrecorded state of this meeting when we stop the button. But yeah, the mid-flight updates are handled by something else. And I wanted to look at the invoke WinGet auto update stuff because it looked like a really turnkey solution. However, a lot of this stuff at my company, unfortunately, has been done as a moonlight endeavor because, you know, I've had to sell this internally as well to get time to actually work on this stuff. And if the company pays for something to do the application patching, even if it's not amazing, then I kind of want them to bang on that vendor's door and make it amazing versus me cobbling something together that I shouldn't have to. So just the installs is the simple answer.
Yeah, that's where we're starting to look at it for that always being on the latest.
Yeah.
But yeah, with patching, that's where we saw a lot of bandwidth impacts because it doesn't have DO.
Yeah. No, absolutely. So yeah, look, it doesn't have DO, and that could be a big thing for some businesses, but half my customers are on gig connections now as well. Like it just isn't too much of a concern anymore. If I was back at PyBar, the mining company I used to work at, out in the middle of the desert on a 2 megabit connection, I'd be concerned. But yeah, I generally find it's okay, even if the DO isn't there.
So maybe we get to do another DO session at some point.
Oh, with agony across his face.
He knows I'm not allowed to talk about it.
Okay.
Oh, it's coming. Like other things that are perpetually in the works.
I've had weirdness with DO as well. I use the Teams bootstrapper to like pre-provision the MSIX for the modern Teams client. I had one client, and it must have been that firewall. But it's always a firewall. It wouldn't pre-provision the Teams MSIX until I forcibly disabled DO in a config profile. And because this was a large customer where they've got a network operations team, they basically told me to prove it's a firewall issue, and I couldn't necessarily prove it's a firewall issue. And I ended up just disabling DO and moving on with my life. But
so one of the issues that used to see that kind of thing a lot, where it'd get partway through the install would start enough to get the download would start enough to get the installer working, but then it would bomb out.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is what they've got, but what it always used to be was where they were basically assigning permissions or outbound permissions to users as opposed to devices. So with Department of Ed, when we were doing the pilot for them, we had to keep telling them, telling the schools, don't do these deployments on the Department of Ed network.
Yeah.
Use your super secret school network.
That special VLAN.
And things will work. And they're like, oh yeah, it worked. And it's like,
yeah.
And
100%.
And that was just something that we just constantly saw. And I think now it's like heavily enough documented in places that, and people have been doing it for long enough now that they're not hitting that same issue over and over.
That's right.
Well, I think the best one that I've seen is where they'll allow one endpoint, which could be this is where you're getting the initial seed from. And then because we have a wildcard requirement for delivery optimization, they just go, well, Microsoft's not telling us the endpoint. So what we're going to do is we're going to sniff the traffic because we're smarter than Microsoft. And we're just going to put that address there. And it works for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And it stops working.
Yeah.
And then people complain, oh, let me go fix that. And there you go, I'm at it, update it, and it works for 2 weeks.
Yeah. That sounds about right. I had another school, and this has been Intune. They started using Intune in 2019 for, it was their onboarding solution. So they couldn't afford a Aruba ClearPass. So we were doing like NDES and all the like to do EAP, TLS authentication. And I know.
You were using NPS, weren't you?
Absolutely. I was using NPS.
And you used the solution to inject the computer object into it?
No, it was all user auth. There was no machine authentication. So, but my point was there, they wanted an onboarding network for just let you put the device through the company portal, and I didn't do it, but one of my guys at the company sat there with Wireshark and basically sniffed the URLs and blocked everything except the URLs that came up in Wireshark to make it work. And it was a very 2 week, I'm going to fix that kind of thing, like you said.
If they're using NPS,
yeah,
you just sign in with username and password. There's no checks to see if it's a trusted device or not. And it doesn't check the certificate. Sorry, did I say that out loud?
No. They wanted certificates, so they wanted ClearPass without ClearPass.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go down that rabbit hole because I think
it was 2019. It's okay. So,
you know the level of triggering.
I do.
Yes, you will.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, suggestions? Everyone's quiet today.
They're all
Good
happy.
stuff, Mitch. I think probably, as you mentioned, you want to get it out and about.
Yes.
I suggest there are certain groups in LinkedIn, write about it and start posting it there. You would probably start getting traction and real good feedback as well.
Yeah.
And then you can take it back and see if you want to improve or go down the PSAD route or whatever. You probably would get massive amount of feedback from the community on that.
Yep. No, absolutely. And that's what I'm after as well. All feedback is good feedback, good, bad, or otherwise. I don't think I'll advertise it too much until I've got it into that module state, just because I imagine a lot of the feedback is, why is it not a module?
Yes.
So I'll eliminate that one straight out of the gate. But yeah, with the PSADT stuff, we're looking at a public preview next month, and I'll probably have a module ready to go on the back of that as well. So that should be pretty exciting stuff.
Nice. Awesome.
No worries. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I guess then, just to sort of open up to other questions and conversations here, what are some of the other things that either you've found an automation solution for with Intune, or that you've been looking at a way of automating things? So let's say, and probably those of you in the MSP space have probably got the most experience with this, but in terms of, what are the things that you're finding that there's still more manual work involved in each additional tenant that you need to set up, as opposed to just being able to, I think the term, last week, I think we had, or last month, I think somebody was asking about, why not just use, Bicep or ARM templates or whatever. And it's like, because it's Intune, not,
That's right.
even though it's based in the Azure portal, it's not, it's not as if, it's being pulled out. Yeah.
It hasn't been in the Azure portal for 4 years.
Yeah.
Or 3 years.
But it still looks like the Azure portal.
Well, yes.
Yeah. But consistency is a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Except for compliance.
Leave the Azure portal. So
yeah, the purview and security things, they're just frustrating because I forget which one I'm in.
Yeah.
And I can't find the thing I'm looking for.
100%.
Why doesn't it say Defender anywhere? Oh, because I'm in the wrong one. So anything there in terms of either like toolkits that you've found that have filled some of those gaps, or things that maybe you've had to build yourself, or that you're considering building just for when it's time to onboard new customers or onboard new tenants, etc., that you just try to strip away as much of that manual stuff. So just probably not quite as applicable to those of you who have jumped into a single Intune environment and you're just sort of doing maintenance and updates on that. Because it's probably just more of an issue for those of you who are constantly building out new customer environments, or alternatively building out demo tenants for yourself, where you're going to hit these things. So any comments, feedback, suggestions?
So, brief disclaimer, my employer, all we do is automate Intune. That's our business. That's what we sell. So one of the fun things I've been playing with lately is onboarding brownfield tenants with a bunch of config, and how do we keep what matters and figure out what might change when they go from what could be spaghetti to some better practices, and then figure out how to communicate that to them. That's been pretty tricky. I don't know if you guys have worked much with like the JSON payloads for Intune config, trying to render that into something that's human friendly or diff that has been challenging.
and the ever-changing framework that it is. So there's been a few documentation solutions written over the years for Intune. They cover a lot of the APIs and things like that. A lot of people just gave up when it went to DCV2 in settings catalog. So there's a gap there if you're interested in building on it.
Yeah, I've got a nice one for DCV2 at the moment that will do like just a merge of every policy in the tenant, and then compare that against a merge of our policies and then figure out what's going to change. Still got to figure out how to render that though.
But I
Yeah,
think-
so there's a couple of things you can do here, especially when you get to DCV2. Yeah, there's somebody on the phone that will know exactly what I'm going to go down the rabbit hole today because we discussed it. But what you can do is you can actually get and hit the endpoint for all of the DCV2 configurations, including everything that gets rendered into the portal plus more. So you can then go and pull that out and compare that against your policy and then use the text from that for your rendering of your UX.
Yeah, the settings endpoint, right? The one that has like the
Yeah.
display name and the tooltip.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah,
'Cause
that's
then
what I've been thinking of using.
Yeah, and
then, yeah,
it's definitely something that. So I'm doing some conversations with a couple of large customers at the moment around demarcation of admin, how do we do infrastructure as code and things like that. And it's something that I'm probably going to do as a side project because there's also been some changes internally, which means that we need to be provisioning and deprovisioning more tenants more often. So yeah, I'd be interested to see how people are doing it and planning to do it, but also watch this space. There might be some open source stuff that comes out. But yeah, there's no good solution today.
But I think
I
though
might,
this,
I do have a script that I can drop that will do like it's not pretty, but it's at least it's recursive, so it catches like the child settings in the diff. But it's not rendered or anything. And yeah, we'll see. We're trying to get that sort of brownfield experience as smooth as possible because it just like dealing with MSPs, it is just such a common problem.
and I think it's just going to get worse because you'll have, you've got, we already know what happens with things like GPO over time, where it just, everyone starts off with good intentions and then everyone does their own little contributions to make it extra special.
Yeah.
So we know, we don't know exactly what we're going to find, but you're not going to like what you'll find. That's the consistent thing. So it's just going to become, more of an issue where it's, obviously going to be a valuable service to be able to, do a really good, fast job with that.
Yeah, we used to be able to, if they were GPO, just say, "Oh, blow it away and start from scratch." But we're not getting that excuse. And like once they're on our platform, we keep them up to date, right? But getting them on is the tricky part, right?
Yeah, and turning around and going, well, I don't care what you've done previously, and here's the new stuff.
Yeah,
scares people.
And figuring out like the platform at least tracks changes as well, so we can at least go, okay, you're an MSP, you have your baseline, and this really special, annoying customer has this set of weird changes. At least you know what they are without having to read through 20 policies.
Yep.
There.
found this recently that's been very helpful for me for Intune diagnostic apps. I don't know.
Do you want to share it onto if you're able to? Is that your corporate environment or is that?
This is from one of my colleagues, but there's not.
Maybe we want to stop the recording.
Okay.
Or I'm not in the Teams.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll stop the recording.
Yeah. I just don't want to get into a situation where we see corporate data.
Yeah.
Especially on the recording, as I'm sure everybody can understand. But yes, I'm intrigued as well. How many people use the ML Sync viewer? How many people know about ML Sync viewer?
I added some more errors to it the other day. Should be
pretty cool.
catching a bit more for people.
But yeah, this is where you can go in and see all of the policies that are being synced to the device and actually copy the XML and everything about it. So it's maintained by one of the MVPs or a few of the MVPs, and you can force your Intune sync and everything associated. So it's good for tracking. It's not.
I'll fix that.
Okay, so
Yeah,
all of this here.
So what this will do, again, if you're wanting to see what's going on your device, this is a really cool, neat little tool that gives you the visibility of all the policies that are syncing, how they go down, things like that. So one of the things that I've used it for previously is, as Mark will giggle when I say it, is around kiosk and being able to see all the assigned access policies that are being applied, because this is where you can see the XML file that's being sent out by Intune to the device to be able to see what's actually happening and being applied. So if it's throwing an error and not applying the policy, you can't actually see the policy. So it's like, what's it doing? So this is how you can get around that. So it's really powerful, highly recommend it as well, if you've not seen it.
Okay, well, I'll stop the recording so that we can switch over to other topics that people want to talk about that don't necessarily want recorded, or if people feel like putting any personally identifiable information on screen, it won't be recorded. So let me just stop that now. True.